It's been 12 long years since the roller coaster of emotions that turned my world upside down. Looking back, I realize how much my tone and attitude have changed since then. I still remember the days when my partner and I had a near-perfect marriage. We met in college and fell deeply in love. Our bond grew stronger with time, and we tied the knot soon after graduation. I was a jock, playing football and baseball, and she was stunningly beautiful and incredibly intelligent. We did everything together, socializing, hobbies, and even weathering storms together. But life is never smooth sailing. We stood by each other through family tragedies and health scares, including her cancer and my heart condition. We were partners in every sense of the word, and our love for each other only grew stronger. As we progressed in our careers, we moved into progressively nicer homes in the same school district. We even splurged on a lake house where we created countless unforgettable memories with our children. Despite all of this, we never forgot to plan for our future. We saved up for our children's college funds and even managed to become debt-free in the last few years of our marriage. As a family, we were always on the go. Vacations, camping trips, date nights, bowling with friends. We were always busy and involved. But amidst the chaos of everyday life, we never lost sight of our love for each other. We made time to nurture our relationship, and that commitment paid off in a million ways. Of course, no relationship is perfect, and we had our moments of disagreement. But we always approached those moments with love and respect, never resorting to anger or shouting. We were a team, in the truest sense of the word, and our partnership was a source of endless joy and fulfillment. Looking back, I know that our happiness was built on a foundation of hard work, dedication, and commitment. And I know without a doubt that my wife would have agreed. Our love was strong, and it only grew stronger with each passing day. Our offspring, a son and a daughter separated by 2 years, illuminate our existence with their radiance. Their presence has brought us immeasurable happiness and affection. As they grew into adults and formed their own families, our contentment only grew further. Our son displayed an innate athleticism akin to his father's, which his coaches and I guided onto the right path. Eventually, his talent on the baseball diamond landed him a scholarship. Our daughter, however, was a choir member and a cheerleader. Despite her youthfulness, she demonstrated remarkable maturity and composure, filling us with pride at every turn. As a father, my daughter's special bond with me was a treasure. She was always known as Daddy's girl. However, when she entered her teenage years, our relationship began to falter. She distanced herself from me, and I couldn't seem to connect with her no matter how hard I tried. It was a painful period, but I knew she still loved me deep down. Fortunately, this arduous phase didn't last forever. Our relationship gradually mended, and we once again became close. I will never forget the immense pride I felt as she approached the culmination of her high school journey. Our union was a fairy tale come to life. I exhausted every strategy in my arsenal, from lavishing her with endearments and attention to attempting novel undertakings as a team. I went to extreme lengths to enhance my physical appearance, hopeful that it would reignite her ardor for me. However, it felt like grasping at smoke. The more I tried, the more elusive the solution appeared. My spouse became increasingly distant, and a sense of foreboding enveloped me. When she expressed her desire for a divorce, my world crumbled. How could this be happening? What had gone wrong? The shock and perplexity were insurmountable, not only for me but for our children as well. I could sense the pain and confusion in my own words, as if it was seeping through the screen. Losing someone so important, so integral to my life, was a pain that I wouldn't wish on anyone. The fear of the unknown, the uncertainty of what was happening to my marriage, was evident in every sentence I uttered. One night, I sat down with my wife and asked her if everything was okay. At first, she brushed off my concerns, telling me that she was just tired from work and that it was nothing to worry about. However, I knew my wife better than that and persisted until she finally broke down and told me the truth. She had been feeling disconnected from me for some time, and she wasn't sure if she was happy in our marriage anymore. I was stunned. I had no idea that my wife had been feeling this way. I asked her what I could do to make things better, but she didn't know. She just knew that something had to change. Over the next few weeks, I worked hard to reignite the spark in our relationship. I planned romantic dates, surprised her with small gestures of kindness, and made an effort to listen to her when she spoke. Slowly but surely, my wife began to respond to my efforts. We started laughing together again, sharing our hopes and dreams, and working through our problems as a team. I had tried everything I could think of to save it, but nothing seemed to be working. The desperation in my voice was palpable, my heart breaking with every passing moment. I knew I had to do something, but I was powerless to stop the inevitable. The fact that I couldn't even bring myself to ask my wife if she still loved me was a sign of just how far we had drifted apart. The thought of someone else being the reason for our separation never crossed my mind until I had coffee with her best friend, and even then I was still in denial. The loss of appetite, the trouble sleeping, and the constant crying were all symptoms of a man whose world was crumbling around him, and I was helpless to stop it. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of despair, unable to see a way out. The image of me lying on the floor, staring up at the ceiling for hours, with my dog's head resting on my chest, was both heartbreaking and heartwarming. It was a reminder that even in the darkest moments, there is always someone or something that can provide comfort and solace. My beloved pet seemed to sense my pain and was there to provide a sense of peace and support. It was clear that I loved my wife deeply and would have done anything to save our marriage. The fact that I felt helpless and out of control was a testament to how much I cared. It was a tragic tale of a love lost, a marriage fallen apart, and a man left to pick up the pieces of his shattered heart. As I recounted my story, I couldn't help but feel a sense of empathy and compassion for myself, for the pain and loss that I had endured. Losing my beloved wife was akin to an unceasing wave of torment crashing over me. Each day felt like a battle to rise from my bed and confront the world without her at my side. It seemed like all the love, time, and effort we had devoted to each other over the years had suddenly been rendered futile. Despite my best efforts, I couldn't seem to connect with her or repair our bond. Divorce was an inevitable and bitter reality that I was unwilling to confront. The prospect of losing her entirely, even as a friend, was devastating. I felt like I had fallen short as a spouse, unable to satisfy her needs and incapable of preserving our marriage. Yet, in spite of the pain, we remained amicable and respectful throughout the process, resolved to avoid inflicting more hurt on each other. Dividing our possessions was a bittersweet experience. Together, we had toiled diligently to create a life that we could both take pride in. And now it was being partitioned and sold. The memories we had formed in those two residences would forever be a part of me, but the idea of returning to either without her was intolerable. The finality of signing the divorce papers was gut-wrenching. I could see the tears in her eyes, and I knew she was hurting just as much as I was. It was like a final goodbye, and it felt like a piece of my heart was being ripped out. The pain of losing a long-term partner is something that never really goes away. It's a wound that may heal over time, but it leaves a scar that will always be a part of you. But even in the midst of all the hurt and heartbreak, I still hold on to the good times we shared and the love we once had for each other, and in some small way, that brings me comfort. The bittersweet reality of watching your daughter grow up and get married is a feeling that no parent can escape. As I sat there, surrounded by the people I love, I couldn't help but feel a sense of melancholy creeping up on me. My daughter, my little girl, was getting married and starting a new chapter in her life. It was a joyous occasion, of course, but I couldn't help but feel a sense of sadness deep within my heart. But then something magical happened. My daughter sat down next to me, her head resting on my shoulder, and we talked and laughed and reminisced about old times. It was a beautiful moment, and I knew that I would treasure it forever. As we sipped our scotch and looked into the flickering flames of the fireplace, I felt a deep sense of gratitude wash over me. I was grateful for my daughter and her fiancé, for my family and friends, and for the love that surrounded me. And even though my heart was still healing from the pain of my divorce, I knew that I had to keep moving forward and find happiness wherever I could. But in that moment, surrounded by the warmth of the fire and the love of my family, I felt content. I knew that everything was going to be all right, and that no matter what challenges lay ahead, I would always have the support and love of those closest to me. As we approached the end of our conversation, my daughter and I started to delve into some more serious topics. And that's when she brought up the divorce. It was something we hadn't really talked about in depth before, other than discussing logistics. However, this time we delved into the emotional aspects of it. I asked my daughter, as a grown woman now, what it was really like to live with me and acknowledge that I knew I wasn't a perfect parent. It was a risky question, but one that I felt I needed to ask after the divorce. To my surprise, my daughter opened up and shared that at times I could be intense and had high expectations. She admitted that they all worried about disappointing me, but she also added that she knew I loved and protected them and would always be there. In fact, she even giggled as she shared that they used to refer to me affectionately as Sergeant Dad or the Sergeant. I acknowledged that I wasn't always the most emotionally open person, but reassured her that I cared deeply for them even if I didn't always show it. It was then that she shared something that left me stunned. She hoped her new husband would be as good a husband and father as I am, and wished that I could find someone who made me happy and didn't cheat like Mom. That's when it hit me. My daughter thought I knew about my wife's infidelity all along. She shared with me that she knew my ex-wife cheated on me with another man before we divorced and assumed that I had known all along. I was in disbelief and asked her why she hadn't told me before. She explained that she thought I knew more than she did, and that's why I had divorced Mom. She also shared that it was a really difficult time for her, and she had purposely avoided the topic with me other than making sure I was okay. I hugged her tightly and thanked her for standing by me throughout everything. She would always be my little girl. I asked her when it had happened and how long it had been going on for. She didn't know for sure, but guessed that it started a month or so before Mom first mentioned divorce. I also asked if her brother knew, and she confirmed that he did. In fact, he was the one who did some social media research and suspected there might be someone else. I was amazed at how perceptive my kids were. It all started to make sense why my children were so cold to their mother and so sympathetic to me during all of this. I hugged my daughter tight, grateful for her honesty and her love. She was the only thing that made sense in my life right now. As I held her close, I knew that I needed to be strong for her and for my son. They were the only reason I had left to keep going. My ex-wife's betrayal had changed everything. It had changed the way I saw her, the way I saw myself, and the way I saw the world. It was like a piece of me had died, and I didn't know how to get it back. All I knew was that I needed to keep going, keep moving forward, even if it was just one step at a time. The night that my ex-wife's affair was exposed was a turning point for me. Up until then, I had been doing my best to be civil during our divorce proceedings, but now I was left unsure of how to act. My thoughts were racing and I couldn't sleep that night. Looking back, I noticed that she had been taking better care of herself, getting her hair and nails done more frequently, buying nicer clothes, and spending more time on her makeup. At the time, I assumed she was simply trying to keep up with younger women at work, but now I realized she was likely preparing for her affair. The truth was that my ex-wife had already found someone else, and it was another man. The rejection was already hard to handle, but this betrayal cut much deeper. My entire world fell apart once again. My daughter also showed me the other man's Facebook page and other sites. I discovered that he was an executive at one of my ex's larger accounts. While his postings did not mention my ex by name, they strongly suggested that he was infatuated with someone who sounded exactly like her. Even though my daughter made a comment about him not being as good-looking as me, it still hurt to see my ex-wife with someone else. I immediately cut off all communication with my ex-wife, ignoring her texts and calls. I even avoided contact with her friends. The fact that her best friend never followed up with me made me wonder if she had been aware of the affair all along. But one night, I was overwhelmed with anger and hurt, and I broke into my ex-wife's house, determined to destroy everything in sight. I smashed her belongings, poured bleach on her clothes, and defaced her family photos. I wanted her to feel the pain and betrayal that I had experienced when I found out about her infidelity. As I was in the midst of my destructive rampage, my ex-wife suddenly appeared before me. I expected her to be outraged and to call the authorities, but instead She looked at me with a mix of sadness and pity. Her response shocked me. I anticipated her to be angry and bitter, but instead she showed me compassion and understanding. She asked for my forgiveness, confessing that she had cheated on me and was too ashamed to tell me during the divorce. At that moment, my anger dissipated. I realized that my ex-wife had been suffering as well, and that my actions had only caused more pain. A week later, my daughter got married, and both my ex and I attended. I was still feeling angry and hurt, but I tried to focus on my daughter's special day. I had lost over 20 pounds due to stress and increased workouts, and I felt good in my tailored tux as I walked my daughter down the aisle. During the ceremony, my ex looked stunning in a tight black dress and heels with her hair all put up, wearing red lipstick and dark hose. Everything she knew I liked. Despite this, I didn't say a word to her. I was still so angry that she had deceived me, and all I could think about was her with the other man. She tried to hold my hand during the vows, but I pulled away. I also made sure that our thighs and shoulders didn't touch. During the picture session, I didn't say anything to my ex, even though she tried to engage me a few times. I focused on joking with my daughter and everyone else, but refused to engage with her. When we got to the reception, I was relieved to find that my daughter had prearranged seating, so I was seated next to her. My ex was seated a few chairs down, which must have been difficult for her. At that point, I don't think she realized that I knew about her affair. I didn't reference my ex at all during my glowing father of the bride toast, as if she had no role in raising our daughter. I also didn't look in her direction during the father-bride dance, even though she was crying. We were supposed to dance with both sets of parents, but I avoided it altogether. I spent the rest of the evening enjoying myself with my daughter, son, and new son-in-law, successfully avoiding my ex. I didn't see her leave, so I'm not sure how long she stayed, but she looked sad every time I saw her. Although it was a tough experience, I learned a lot about myself and my ability to handle difficult situations. While it may not have been my finest moment, I think I did what I needed to do to protect my own emotional well-being. It was a tough pill to swallow when she chose someone else over me after more than 28 years of being together, especially since I was going through a difficult time. However, I've come a long way since then. As my counselor had predicted, I had to learn how to live alone and rediscover my purpose. Though it was tough, I can honestly say that it doesn't hurt anymore. Instead, I focused on creating a space that was truly my own. I turned my house into a dream palace, adding a third bay in the garage for my Harley Softail with a deuce seat and an ATV. I've always loved to ride, but my ex never allowed me to have a motorcycle. Now, I have the freedom to ride whenever I want. I also upgraded my kitchen and living spaces with all the latest conveniences. But my favorite part of the house is my man cave in the basement, with a top-of-the-line sound system, video facilities, wet bar, and quality gym. I have everything I need to unwind after a long day. I love sitting in my recliner, listening to classical music or old rock, which my ex never let me play loudly. My house has become the go-to spot for game days, with friends and family coming over to watch multiple games simultaneously, just like in a sports bar. I even set up a playroom for my grandkids, complete with a TV, small furniture, and toy box full of toys. I cherish the time I spend with my grandkids and their parents when they come over to visit regularly. Last week, we had a pumpkin carving party that was loads of fun. My ex would have loved it. I'm considering getting another dog to play with the grandkids and me. I even installed a remote wood-burning furnace with a heat exchanger, which heats my home mostly from my own timber. It's not only cost-effective, but it also keeps me active during the colder months. Overall, while the past was painful, I'm grateful for the opportunity to rebuild my life and create a home that I love. I've discovered new passions, spent time with loved ones, and created memories that will last a lifetime. It's been 12 years since my ex-wife left me for another man, and I've come to terms with the fact that she chose him and threw me away after more than 28 years together. At first, it was painful, but as my counselor predicted, I learned how to live alone and redefine my purpose in life. I made my house into a dream palace, adding a third bay in the garage for my new Harley Softail with a deuce seat and an ATV. I put in all the latest conveniences in the kitchen and living spaces and turned the basement into my man cave, complete with a great sound system, incredible video facilities, wet bar, and a quality gym. It's my sanctuary where I work out, listen to music, and relax. I've also created a playroom for my little grandkids to visit, complete with a TV, small furniture, animals painted on the walls, and a toy box full of toys. I love spending time with them and hosting events like our recent pumpkin carving party. My ex would have loved it too. I'm even considering getting another dog to play with them and keep me company. As for my love life, I found that I enjoy being single and dating again. My friends' spouses and girlfriends tried setting me up with other women early on, but I resisted. However, after almost 2 years, I finally gave in for a double date with my kids, urging me. It was awkward at first, but now I have ongoing relationships with several amazing women. Dating in my 50s and early 60s is different from when I was a young man. There are many smart, attractive, unattached women, my age and younger, who crave attention from a relatively healthy man. You don't have to be a superstar. You just have to be respectful, attentive, confident, and most importantly, fun. I am completely honest with them about not wanting a wife or an exclusive relationship. I'm cautious and very selective. I won't date a married woman or someone just for a one-night stand. I have to really like her and have fun and enjoy her company, and I need to sense that she feels the same way about me. I take them to concerts, ball games, camping, backyard cookouts, dinner theaters, and other activities before we get too close. It took me a while to get used to the idea of non-exclusivity and not getting jealous or possessive if I saw one of them out with someone else. I finally realized that I can't control my partner, and that's okay. It's part of the deal. I enjoy dating without the pressure of exclusivity. It's refreshing for both me and my lady friends. If something more intimate happens naturally, that's great, but I don't pressure or seduce them into it. I have a couple of longtime lady friends that I've never been close with, and that's okay too. Overall, I'm living my best life, and I'm grateful for the experiences and people in it. I have been a private pilot for many years and love flying my own small, experimental, amateur-built plane. However, my wife has never shared my passion for flying. To address this, I have invited each of my lady friends to fly-ins and short trips. I even take them on breakfast or lunch trips on my Harley, a popular outing known as the $100 hamburger. Each of these special women has their own passions, and I have tried to share in those as well. I have climbed Mount Baker after months of training, taken scuba training to earn my PD open water dive certificate, and even gone skydiving as a tandem with them. To my surprise, I also enjoyed going to the opera with one of them. However, my most memorable experience with one of my lady friends involved crashing wedding parties at city parks. We would mingle with the guests, eat their food, drink their booze, and throw $100 in the collection jar or money tree. Although I spend a lot of time with these women, more often than not, I am home alone or cuddling with one of them on the couch while watching Netflix or listening to her favorite music. The point is, these women push me to do things I would never have done on my own. I still struggle with wanting these women for myself, especially the wedding crasher, who is the whole package. But I know that I cannot allow myself to think that way. Shortly before COVID, I went on a 7-day cruise with 3 attractive women. I had only dated and been close with one of them before the trip, but all 3 were fun and flirty. We laughed and had the best time going on day excursions and dancing and partying on the ship every night. It was probably the best vacation of my life, except for some memorable trips with our preteen kids. At the end of the cruise, a cruise line representative approached me and asked if I would like to go on future cruises at unbelievable discounts. Apparently, they needed more older single men to dance and interact with all the single ladies and widows. As flattering as it was, I couldn't help but feel like a gigolo. Although I'm living my best life, I know that my ex-wife may not be as lucky. I've been told that her relationship with the other man lasted about 3 years. However, I didn't ask for the details or if they lived together. It's no longer my business. I did start responding to her texts and emails around 5 years ago to appease my kids, but we mostly just shared info and pics about the kids and grandkids. My ex-wife says she wants to talk with me about the divorce and the affair and to answer any questions, But I don't have any desire to know all of that. I see no upside, so I just ignore those particular emails. We have seen each other at weddings and funerals and politely exchanged greetings. The last time we talked in person was at our newest grandson's christening. She still looked attractive, but older, aren't we all? We talked about the grandkids and laughed about fond memories for over 2 hours. Although I sometimes still grieve the loss of my marriage, these are truly golden years. Who knows how long it will last? However, my ex-wife and I have recently agreed to be there for each other when we get old and need assistance. She is the mother of my children and the grandmother of my grandchildren and was my wife for 28 years. We have even signed HIPAA and medical directive forms for each other. Although we are no longer together, my daughter has noticed that I am more content and easygoing than before, which I attribute to my retirement last year. I no longer have to deal with the pressures of the job and office politics, which has been a liberating experience that has significantly impacted my daily attitude. These are indeed the golden years, and I am grateful for this newfound freedom. However, I still occasionally mourn the loss of my marriage, especially when I come across old photos or places that remind me of our past together. Recently, my ex and I agreed to be there for each other as we age, especially since her family has a history of stroke. She is still the mother of my children and the grandmother of my grandchildren, and we were together for 28 years. In the past few months, my ex has invited me to dinner at her condo or out on a date, which my daughter has mentioned several times. Interestingly, my ex isn't seeing anyone and hasn't for years, which makes me wonder if there is an end game to their sudden interest in my social life. While I am intrigued, I am also cautious about taking the next step. I'm unsure if they are ganging up on me, but I trust my daughter's intentions and know that she would never allow me to be hurt again. In any case, I am content with my current life, whether single or in a relationship. I cherished my married life with my wife and now appreciate the freedom of my single life. Whatever happens, life goes on, and I know that I will not be alone in my old age, whether or not I end up with my ex.